Hello everyone. We are gonna show you the model we did in a situation of how the different gamer personalities affect each other in a game and how their numbers increase or decrease depending on whichever they are. So first of all, the personalities we've used are from the model that Bartel used. This model came to be as from the 90s onward, a lot of games started to be made, and most of them started to be in multiplayer mode when the internet started to appear. So with those increasing the multiplayer type of games and online playing, a lot of gamers started to appear, but they weren't always similar. So for trying to make a model and like see which gamers were more interested in one game or another, Bartel decided to make a study on how they reacted with the world and the other players. With this, he made this graph in which we have the acting and interacting with the world or with the players. And the first type that appeared were the killers that really like chaos and really like to get to their objectives without caring about other players and in some occasions even killing them. So they really like to act within other players. Then we have the achievers who really like to gain experience as well as be successful in a game. So they really like to act within the world of the game. Then we have socializers who really like to make friends in a game and they don't really care about what the game's about, but about the people in it. So they really like to interact with other players. And lastly, we have the explorers who really like to find all the hidden places and mechanics the game can offer, as well as the story. So they really like to interact with the world. So this is the network model we got, the 3D model. And in the base layer, we have the 4 different types of players and their connections with each other. In the case of the explorers, it only has a connection with itself that is positive, as the explorers really don't care about the other players in the game. They only care if there are more of them that appreciate their work. And the killers and achievers have a more of a complicated relationship, as if there are a lot of achievers, the amount of killers will increase, but however, achievers don't really like killers, so if there are a lot of killers, they will decrease rapidly. And with socializers, when there are more of them, they increase in numbers rapidly as they have people to socialize with. And if the number of killers is really high, they tend to go lower. And with the achievers, it's the same. So first, for this simulation, we made a non-adaptive model in which we just saw how the different types of players affected them. So we only used the base model of the shown before. And in the base connectivity, we just have how they were connected. In the connection weights, we used the negative connections in the case where one of the type of players made other decrease. And that also happened in the allogistic function when the players make a bit more of impact on others, they have a bigger value. And then in the speed factors, in this case, they are all the same, as we wanted to all start at the same time, but with different initial values. Those initial values, we use them from the study Bartel made, as he saw that the different types of players didn't appear in the same amounts along the games. And here we got the results. As you can see, the explorers, that is the orange line increases rapidly as it only has its own positive reinforcement, and the express socializers and achievers interact a bit more with each other. The socializers more or less always stay high, they always start high. But however, when the killer starts to go up, the killers don't also affect the achievers that go down rapidly, but they also end up affecting the socializers that end up dropping their values too.
So after we made a non-adaptive model, we also made a fully adaptive model, taking into account also the connection, the adaptive connection weights. As you can see in the connection weights model, all the ones that have links to others are now adaptive, and the self-links are still just normal. And all the connection weights of the adaptive links are 1. For the basic level, we still just used the logistic function, but for the other two, we used either the Hebbian or the negative Hebbian function, depending on whether it was a negative connection. For the strong connections, we have big persistence factors for the Hebbian function, and for the ones that have smaller impacts, we made the persistence factors a lot lower. Also, for the speed factor, the ones that have more impact have a higher speed factor, and the ones that have small impact have a lower one. And also the negative have a initial value that is negative, and the positive ones have a positive. And then you can see our model. As you can see, the socializers, they start high and they stay high since they have a positive connection to themselves. The explorers, just like in the first model, goes high because also their self-connection. In this case, you can see that the killers, once again, starts going up, but this time it doesn't drop down. It just gets decreased a little bit, and just as in the first model, the achievers goes down immediately because it only has negative connections to others. But we wanted to also have a more accurate model showing exactly how many players there are. So we felt that it was a good idea to make a model also for the percentages. In this case, you can see that the explorers and the socializers are both at around 40%. The killers are around 20%, and the achievers are reaching an amount of close to 0. But like Alicia said, there's not the same amount of every player. There's around 80% socializers, 10% of both explorers and achievers, and only around 1% of the killers. So we thought we might also adapt this into the model. And in this case, you can see that there's around 88% socializers, 12% explorers, and around like 0.5% of killers. Achievers still close to 0. So with this final model, we felt we showed an accurate description of how this game would look, with being a lot of socializers, barely any a solid amount of explorers, some killers, and barely any achievers. Unfortunately, our model doesn't show every connection there is. There's some difficult connections in this model. For example, if there should only if to increase the achievers, for example, if the killers is a very high amount, then the amount of explorers should be decreased, which is a very hard thing to put into our model. So we decided not to include this. And another thing is massively increasing. So, for example, to increase the amount of explorers, to increase the amount of killers, the amount of explorers should be massively decreased. And since this was also not very easy to show in our model, we decided not to.